And welcome to That's Absurd. Please elaborate, the show where we take questions from you, the listeners, about the silliest things that you can think of when your mind is out, going for a stroll, not really hard at work, just taking it easy, kicking back, enjoying maybe a tropical drink or something, foreshadowing.
Wow, really want to be on a beach or something?
Yeah, it's on my mind. You'll see why.
Oh.
We take those questions and we do our best to find some sort of satisfying answer backed by research of a kind. I don't know.
Sometimes we guess.
Sometimes we make stuff up wholeheartedly, but we always tell you when we do that. But for the most part, at least you'll come away with a fun fact to share at a cocktail party or what have you. I am one of your two hosts. I am Julian Huguet.
And I am the other of the two people that you will hear on this podcast today. I am Trace Dominguez. We're science communicators, and let's communicate some science. Now, other stuff too.
Trace, this is an audio medium, but we do this in a video call because we're separated by, the continent of North America, and it helps me feel closer to you, but your video is turned off today.
Yeah, I was going to... Well... Let me tell you the question that I have first, and then I'll turn on my video, and I think
it's
you'll
relevant.
be excited. It's relevant. So this week, we have a question from Kevin, who sent us audio.
Okay.
Hey, Trace and Julian. My name's Kevin from Orlando, Florida. I've got a question for you. Growing up, one of my fondest memories was watching Star Trek: The Next Generation with my dad. To this day, he and I still bond over a hot cup of Earl Grey. Is a replicator... the magic food and beverage generator from the Starship Enterprise, even possible with enough technological advancement? And if so, what would they need to have stocked on the ship to keep a crew the size of the crew on the Enterprise alive for their 5-year mission? Let me know. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kevin. Oh, Kevin, this one feels targeted. This feels...
Let me turn on my camera.
Oh, okay.
Science officer Trace reporting.
Yes.
Got my science officer Blue on.
You dressed up for the podcast.
3 pips, by the way. 3 pips. 1, 2, 3. 3 pips.
Oh my gosh. 3. Oh, Trace. 3 pips for Trace. Listener, Trace is in a blue, I want to say Next Generation, if I'm recognizing the regalia.
Yeah.
Blue Next Generation Starship uniform.
Starship uniform.
Excuse me, I know.
Julian is
Federation,
not a Trekkie.
I know, I can't fake it. Federation uniform.
It's Federation uniform. Federation Science Officer uniform. Blue.
Incredible.
Blue.
Thank
Science
you.
Blue.
It's a shame that no one will see it. Or will they?
We can't tell anybody that yet. We can't tell you. Maybe you will. So, maybe that's why this room is filled with decorations.
Could be.
So, this is a great question. It's a question that nerd friends and I have, pondered forever, and none of us ever decided to look it up, of course. We just, read the lore and learned about stuff. We didn't really think about it from a physics perspective or whatever. We thought about it from, in-universe perspective. And so this, Kevin, come here, Kevin. This was question bait. It was question bait.
Hook, line, and sinker, baby.
I appreciate it. But you could have asked about airplanes, and gotten Julian if you wanted. I think the audience knows.
I'm resisting those. I've seen them pop up, and I'm like, I can't. Mad Max meme, that's bait.
Yeah. Okay, so let me actually try and answer Kevin's question. If you're unfamiliar with Star Trek out there in the science podcast audience, I'm not sure how, but maybe. Star Trek is a television show that's been around for, 60 years. The first iterations came out in the late 60s, and they are still airing new ones today. I highly recommend, if you haven't watched any Star Trek, just go watch Strange New Worlds. It's on Paramount Plus. You could probably find it elsewhere. It's really excellent. It's brand new. Everything looks cool. It's fun. And the themes are all, relevant to now. Star Trek has always been very pluralist and progressive and really interesting about humans bettering themselves. And really the themes of the show are there's always someone who wants to understand humanity better. So in the original series, it was Kirk and Spock. And Spock's an alien and Captain Kirk is a bravado human, and they're just trying to understand each other. And then in the Next Generation, this is, somewhat my opinion, but also it's part of the kind of fun of Star Trek. It's like Data and Worf and other kind of characters who are aliens or who are othered, and they're trying to understand humanity. And so it's a way to view through another lens ourselves, which is classic sci-fi stuff. So let's talk a little bit about the Trek timeline, because to understand the Replicators, I wanted to understand where they come from. It's a very Trace thing to do. So yes. Trek timeline, very wild. There are some established and very precise moments throughout the timeline. I went to the museum in Seattle that used to be called the Science Fiction Museum, and now it has a new name. I think it's called the AMP or something. Anyway, it's like a pop culture museum. And they had the timeline of Star Trek on a giant wall. And let me tell you, it was floor to ceiling and like probably 20 feet wide. And there were lines going everywhere because there's time travel, there's phasing between different universes, there's everything. It's sci-fi. And it's episodic, so there's a lot of it. But if we go through the Trek timeline, World War III happens in 2026.
No.
So...
No.
I read that and I thought, that probably felt very far away when they wrote this.
But we're living in such a time of stability. I don't see it happening.
I will comment no further upon that.
End of that discussion. Continue, please. With fiction.
The war is a very, very bad time. There are a eugenics component. Again, we're not going to talk about it. Soldiers are given drugs to enhance them. Finally, in 2053, there is a ceasefire. No one wins. Everyone loses. Nuclear weapons are involved. 600 million people are lost. 600,000 species are extincted. Cities are destroyed. Nuclear fallout. Long time, dark time. Anyway, after that, it's called the post-atomic horror. Can't wait.
Can't wait.
It'll be so fun. Glad we already have a roadmap. So what follows is the dark time called the post-atomic horror, where a global turmoil of fallen governments. It's classic dystopian sci-fi, which we actually haven't seen on screen in the Trek universe. Could be really interesting. There's a genocide, not awesome, of people who were irradiated. It's bad. Then in 2060, a guy named Zephram Cochrane, who's living in rural Bozeman, Montana, is tinkering with one of the cruise missiles left over from the war, like you do. 2063, documented in the Star Trek film First Contact, Cochrane flies that missile into space using a new drive that he invented to warp to the moon and back in like a minute,
right?
Which is pretty cool.
Right.
A passing Vulcan starship spots this happening and goes, "Oh, humans, they're finally ready," because it's like the indicator that this species is now going to start coming out into the stars, and other species out in the stars are like, we should probably tell them we're here now.
Right.
Now that they can get out here.
Welcome them to the party.
Exactly. So the Vulcans show up. It's, interesting. It took until the 2100s to really figure things out. The Vulcans are providing resources and introducing us to friends, at the galactic party. Through the Vulcan technology, we are virtually eliminate poverty, hunger, and disease, and war on Earth. The lack of disequity and hopelessness helped humans become better. We're less cruel. We have less despair. Another, 50 years go by and we get a united Earth government, because without poverty and with everyone feeling like, oh, we're all one people, there's, Vulcans are a different race entirely, a united Earth government forms. And by 2150s-ish, the first spacecraft Enterprise, which is the very first Star Trek ship, is launched. And some of that has been covered on screen in Star Trek. You get glimpses of it. But we still don't have food replicators for another 100 years. So we can technically travel as a human race in this fictional universe faster than the speed of light. Don't ask me to explain it. I can, but that's not what this is about. Basically, it makes a wave of space-time, and you just are surfing on that wave of space-time within a bubble. But that's fine.
Right. You're not breaking.
You're not actually going
laws.
faster. Space is moving, not you. And that's...
Right. That's the whole key.
As famously said by Simon Pegg in Star Trek 2009, I think, it didn't occur to me to think of space as the thing that was moving. But that, of course, it would have occurred to you, Engineer Scotty. That's what you would have learned that at the Academy. Anyway, we've got food replicators by the 2250s, and starships get them sometime later. And the Star Trek that Kevin mentions is not the first Star Trek series. It's the second Star Trek series made. It's not even the first one in the timeline. There are several prior to the Next Generation. Next Generation's pretty late in the Star Trek timeline that you see on TV or in movies. The famous Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart Enterprise D, didn't exist until the 24th century. So, if we think of Third World War happening, just in like 24 months, we're looking at like hundreds of years from now.
Okay.
To get something where you push a button, or in this case, you talk to it because it's TV, and it gives you Earl Grey hot. Or,
right.
Whatever you want. Ice cream. You can do all sorts of stuff. It can do alien dishes. It can do whatever.
Right.
So what do we know about replicators? As a non-Trekkie Julian, now that we have established this timeline, we've got replicators, what do they do?
Like all kitchen appliances, what's in their name, right? Like, what does your toaster do?
Right.
It toasts.
Okay. It toasts.
Replicator is replicating something.
Yeah. It replicates things. We often hear that it converts energy into matter. Mm-hmm. But that's not actually a thing. Mass and energy cannot be converted into each other, more that they are equivalent. I watched several physics professors explain how they were annoyed when people say it converts energy into matter, which I thought was funny. Mass and energy cannot be converted into each other, but they are maintained because they are equivalent, which I find very interesting.
So therefore, it's not taking energy and making something out of it. It's taking matter.
Yes, buddy. Oh, God, I love...
It's just got to be matter that's already available to
They
it.
are rearranging matter from storage and then using energy to assemble said matter.
Right.
Which I did not, even as a watcher of the show, I thought it was like, they take energy and they just make matter out of nothing because physics, the matter cannot be created or destroyed, or energy cannot be created or destroyed. It's, law of conservation of energy and all of these things. It's just converting it. Nope. What it's doing is it has a storage tank of matter and it converts it using base pieces into whatever it is that you've ordered.
Right.
I read the Star Trek technical manual, Deep Space Nine edition, because the TNG one seems to have been copyrighted off the internet. I also read, really interesting, the writer's manual, which is like for the people writing the actual show, the shorthand and like descriptors, so that when a new writer would come in, they could give them this little handbook.
Right.
And they would know not to go out of the bounds of the show.
Don't break the rules. I don't know if you know this, but our fans are kind of rabid.
Yeah.
And if you start breaking the rules we've established, you're going to hear about it.
Exactly. So what they said in the writer's manual and in the technical manual is it's basically a less sophisticated transporter. New vocab word, transporter, for those unfamiliar.
I hate to say this, but I actually had this thought a second ago when you said that it's just arranging matter, right?
Yeah.
So the transporter in the Trekkie universe is like energize, right? Beam me up, Scotty.
Beam me up, Scotty. That's right.
And my understanding of that is it basically breaks you down atom by atom and then reassembles those atoms somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, almost.
Or in a more horrifying twist, it uses those same, elements, but different actual atoms in whatever place you want to go to replicate you or Kirk or whoever might be getting energized.
Okay.
Is that accurate to the lore?
I mean, yes, kind of, but not, but also not.
Okay.
So teleporting is a thing that exists. You can hear about it in physics papers and in Pop Sci. I have covered it. Julian has covered it. Mm-hmm. Teleporting in the real world and teleporting in the Trek universe are different. So let's cover the Trek one first, and then I do want to touch on the real one because it is pretty neat.
Okay.
So you're right. Transporters in fiction scan every atom of your being, every single one, including their quantum states, which is cool, every particle and their location, and any interactions they are having. They disassemble it, they take those particles and beam them to another location where it reassembles all that information. It's extremely power intensive. They cannot store it. There's too much information to store for any length of time. So they can store it in what they call a pattern buffer, which is like RAM, basically. It can just like hold it there and it degrades over time because there's just so much information. If you think about a 70 kilogram person, 150 pounds, you got 7 billion atoms. That's 7 with with 27 zeros. To put that in perspective, imagine $1 trillion. You can't.
Can't.
That is 1,000 billion. 7 billion were grains of rice. It would be 270 times the mass of the moon.
Whoa.
If it were just rice.
And that's how many atoms.
Yeah, that's how many atoms are in you. So the transporter is taking all that information, but if you think about it, 99% of your body is made up of hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen.
Right.
So in some stuff, it can take shortcuts. Maybe there are. I don't actually know the technical way that Star Trek works. They only get so, but I think Julian will appreciate this, and any other physics nerds out there. You cannot know the quantum state of something without changing that quantum state, right? So if you observe something in quantum reality, you can't know its spin and position at the same time.
Right.
This is proven by Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Within the transporter, if you were to get the Star Trek Omnipedia, which I didn't have because it was too expensive, but my friend had, so I would go to his house to read it. There's in the transporter is a Heisenberg compensator. Literally, that's what it's called within the transporter system, which is just, I love the nerds that wrote Star Trek. So in real life, we can do some of that teleporting. It's real. It's a portmanteau of telecommunication and transportation because we essentially translate a physical thing into data. So physicists at the California Institute of Technology accomplished their first teleported object in 1998, but it doesn't have mass. It's just a photon. This is also known as, Julian?
Quantum entanglement.
Yes, quantum entanglement. So physicists entangle two particles. Essentially, they create two photons at the exact same time so that they're like twins. That way they don't have to know everything about them. And then when one does something, it affects the other one. This is a super simplified version of that. And so they can move stuff really far apart. They can move these two photons far apart. They can put one a mile away from the other one. And if they were to affect the first one, it affects the second one.
Right. Instantaneously, too.
Instantaneously. The thing is, you wouldn't actually know that because you can't observe it without changing it. So you have to still get like a radio wave that says, hey, we changed it like this. And then you get there and it's like, hey, they did.
Right, right. We talked about this on the Poking the Moon one, where I'm like, I sometimes it feels like a cop-out on like, this is how it's not breaking any laws of physics.
Right, yeah.
You're not actually sending information faster than the speed of light, Right,
because you still have to communicate it at the speed of light in order to understand the thing that you're looking.
Yeah, the signal from the noise. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, yes, we can teleport things in real life. The transporters and actual physics teleporting are very different. One is massless, the real one, and the other one has mass, the fake one. Replicators work like transporters, and this is the best way I've found to put it together. Transporters have quantum resolution. They can see the quantum state of every atom in your body. Replicators have molecular resolution. They don't need to know the quantum state of an ice cream sundae. They just need to know that it's made of carbon and hydrogen and oxygen and, a variety of other nitrogen, like just most of the food we're eating is made of those things. So it just needs to know its molecules. You can't taste quantum states. Chiral, as we talked about in the Mirror Trace episode, right? You can taste them and they would taste the same, but they're
different.
Different.
Depends on the molecule.
Yeah. Right. And so maybe I'm sure they have categorized all of these in the 20 tree.
Right. Or the replicator knows to build like right-handed glucose, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because if it built a left-handed glucose in all its food, everybody on the Enterprise would slowly starve to death without realizing why.
What a good virus to put in the Enterprise.
I know. Star Trek
Why isn't
idea.
that a storyline? Yo,
Call
if there are
me.
any Star Trek people listening, please call us. We have so many ideas.
Yeah.
That's the first one, I'm sure.
Obviously, I'm a huge fan, too. I won't even need the manual to know all the rules.
Yeah, exactly. He won't need to read it. He's just that good. So, replicators pull from a storage of matter. And from what I could find out, they use, like the teleporters, this energy beam to assemble that matter. The thing is, instead of pulling a person from one place to another, it's pulling water and carbon and other molecules into a puzzle.
Trace, I'm going to do something real quick.
What?
I have a prediction where this is going.
Okay.
I'm going to write it on this notepad.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to set it aside.
Okay. Great. I think I know what you're writing.
Okay.
And you're probably right. If I am right, you're right.
I have written it down.
Okay.
I have set it aside.
Got it.
Please continue.
Please elaborate, I think. So it's like a 21st century Lego set, but atomic level in the 24th century. You're just building a sundae of its component parts, and your mouth shouldn't be able to tell the difference. Your gut shouldn't be able to tell the difference. Gianluca Sari, a quantum physicist at Queen's University in Belfast, told Science News Explorers, on a fundamental level, quote, there is nothing that prevents you from building a replicator-like machine. There's no reason it couldn't work, but the amount of energy and computing power required would be a lot. Basically, like I said, Earl Grey tea is 99% water. So mostly you're just moving some hydrogen and some oxygen from one place to another, and then adding a little bit of bergamot oil, which is just an organic molecule of some kind, which means it has carbon and hydrogen and oxygen in it, and maybe some other trace elements. So then you build a cup, which contains silica, feldspar, soda ash, limestone arranged in a specific way to make a glass. And you arrange that into a lattice of some kind or into an amorphous solid, and you end up with a cup of Earl Grey tea, which, again, if you're not a Trekkie, is important to Jean-Luc Picard. Mm-hmm. So it's like a molecular factory. And a company called Mattershift today, here in the 21st century, uses carbon nanotube membranes and say that they can actually do this now, that they can combine separate individual molecules like a 3D printer and combine them to form raw materials using, again, carbon nanotube membranes. They were a little light on the details. But the technology, they said, could be used to create carbon zero fuels by removing CO2 from the air, rearranging it, and turning it into something more useful. Which is pretty cool. Hydrocarbon is, like propane is C3H8. And carbohydrate, like glucose, like you mentioned, is C6H12O6, very famous. So you really get a couple propanes and some oxygen, rearrange it, you got a carbohydrate. Like chemistry, very simple. Mm-hmm. So Kevin asked, if they go on a 5-year mission, what do they need to make this matter 3D printer, make all of those molecules? And again, nutrients are just carbo, hydro, oxy, DACE kind of things, and ACEs. And so they just mix in some elements for color and flavor and nutritional process. So when you get right down to it, it's actually pretty simple. Starship is a closed system, like an aquarium. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out. So, yep. Julian, what did you write on your paper? Julian wrote poop. Julian, how do we ding 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 ding?
It uses poop. It's hard to
I
see
could just read the part that said
it
poop.
uses poop, but poop was the biggest letters.
Yep, that is correct. So,
yes! What horrible prize do I win?
You win the knowledge that everyone in Star Trek is literally eating themselves.
I guess. We've covered this, like the dead bacteria from their gut, mostly.
The dead bacteria from their gut, stuff that the replicator used to have in its storage tanks, in the same way that you are drinking dinosaur urine, because that water has not gone anywhere, and there hasn't been new water. Well, there has, but like if we're being very technical, but the amount is so small that you're drinking urine from a dinosaur, and probably from some ancient humans, and a bunch of other, it's the same water molecule. It's just in a different place now.
Right. See, my thinking, what struck me as soon as you started going into,
what it does.
They're on a space station, right?
Yeah.
Is what do astronauts do on the space station today, on the ISS? Sure, they get shipments of food, but water is very, very valuable up there.
And heavy.
And so the astronauts famously are drinking recycled urine all the time.
Yep.
And you know what? They're fine with it.
They're fine with it. It turns out it tastes like water.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is.
That's what
mostly.
It is.
So I read a piece by Aaron MacDonald, astrophysicist, and a science advisor for the Star Trek franchise, basically my future best friend. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Julian. And bio-waste.
I know when I'm beat.
And she said, bio-waste and other recycled material is broken down into basic parts, water, carbon, and other molecules. This was also said aloud on the show in Star Trek Discovery, which is a newer series. In case you're curious, season 3, episode 12, when, quote, Federation replicators often recycle waste products by living beings, including fecal material, to provide the raw material for replicators. Such material was deconstructed down to the atomic level, then recombined as needed for foodstuffs and other products. And how do we know this works? We're already doing it.
Yep.
Chat, We're doing it now. The Earth is a closed system like a spaceship. So at some point, your molecules were part of something else. Your carbon was part of a decaying plant. Your iron, was part of somebody's iron in their blood, some animal somewhere potentially. It could have been in a rock. It's ended up here, and it's ended up as part of you, and it's been there ever since. So that's pretty cool. So how much exactly do they need? I don't know. You could probably do the math and be like, oh, well, the frickin' Enterprise D has a crew complement of like over 1,000. It's a ridiculously huge ship with like families and children, and like those children are growing, which it would. There's a lot to consider, but again, 24th century, they probably have a computer that can do that, and experience of more than 100 years of spaceships. But like, you just need to bring enough matter that if everybody eats at the same time, you don't run out of it. Or because it's a ship, maybe you say like, oh, we'll stagger who can eat when, because people are going to poop it out, and then we'll turn it back into more food.
Right. And you can go, the Navy submarines, they do basically 3 crews running 8-hour shifts at a time, right?
Right.
So, yeah, makes sense. You say, though, that there are families on board. That would mean, though, that you'd have to keep the population stable, like within...
Yeah, I mean, they're not on missions for 5 years on the Enterprise. They're staying in Federation space, so they're not going way out into the middle of nowhere. They're mostly just hanging out in Federation space the whole time. Okay. So they can go to a starbase and pick people up and drop people off and get repaired. The Enterprise original series, Discovery on some level, and Strange New Worlds, they're like 5 years on their own out in the middle of like unexplored space. Voyager, which is even further away. So they're considered more like closed systems. The Enterprise D is technically not a closed system for any length of time because they can just go pick up new supplies or drop stuff off.
So it does make me wonder, though, right? Like, I understand reusing excrement makes total sense to me, right? You just break down those bacteria and rearrange it into food. That's great. I remember from my limited knowledge of Star Trek that there's quite a few deaths that occur.
There are. Yeah.
Also, if you're dealing with, children that are growing and then need like more food, and you have these, say, pile of ensigns that are building up
bunch of
all
red
these
shirts.
red shirts.
Yeah.
Do they do a cannibalism in Star Trek?
As far as I know, no.
Okay.
Now, cannibalism has been mentioned in the show because it's very dramatic, right?
Yeah.
But what you see more often on screen, at least, especially in some of the original series films, is funeral procession arrangements. Okay. And they put them into essentially a torpedo, very naval-like, and they shoot them out into space. And they, like the Navy says, we commit your body to the deep. They're like, commit your body to space, kind of thing. Okay. Which is funny because it means that those atoms don't get to come back to the closed system that is Earth.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a pretty short-sighted way to think about it.
Unless you do the ceremony and then
you pick it up and
you
turn it into
beam their
more
corpse back aboard.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, we haven't gotten... This is potentially very dark we could get into,
I mean, honestly, maybe they do. And they don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Maybe they do. We'll have to ask Erin McDonald. Maybe she knows.
I bet post-World War III cannibalism gets normalized.
Maybe.
I'm just going to throw it out there. I bet it happens.
They don't really look back at that period as like, we learned a lot.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, like,
the post-atomic horror.
It probably became like, less taboo because it had to happen, I imagine, right? And then I don't know how society shifts, and then hundreds of years in the future, they're like, sometimes we eat our dead. What are you gonna do? It's a waste otherwise.
Technically, we humans are eating our dead.
In a very roundabout way.
Unless, we're not so much now, I guess. In the U.S., at least, we put them in a stainless steel coffin, and we lower them, if you're buried, and they lower you into a hermetically sealed coffin that's locked into a concrete vault that they then put a thing on top of. The movies are lying to you. Oh, yeah. They're not just like putting a coffin in dirt and then you need heavy equipment to get it out.
And then the body itself has chemicals that stop the decaying
like
process.
Preservatives in it.
Right.
So maybe we're not eating the dead now.
Bummer.
Like more recent dead. But at some point, dead things have been everywhere. There's been things. Billions and billions, to quote Carl Sagan. of dead things.
Yeah.
So we're eating dead things already. The carbon, again, part of a decaying plant at some point. The nitrogen fixed by the bacteria in the soil and turned into a plant that you ate. Like, this is normal. The more you think about it, the grosser it is, but also the more you think about it after that, you're like, oh, it gets less gross because it's just that's how it's always been, and it's only gross because we don't think about it.
I should say that the official position of this podcast is anti-cannibalism.
Yes, I'm glad that you mentioned that. Yeah, I think we are an anti-cannibalism podcast. Please do not eat your species. You are not a polar bear.
Especially if they're unwilling, if they're like alive being like, please don't, no.
Honestly, even if they're willing, please don't.
Please don't. Yeah.
Just don't. Don't do it. I mean,
there was a whole court case in Germany about that in like the 90s.
Oh, cool.
Anyway.
So, lighter note, we're actually doing some 3D printing of foods now here in the 21st century. So
yeah, bring it back.
We can do food printers are like industrial level food making, where they take like literal globs of chocolate or ice cream or batter and they like put them together. And so we're doing this at like a macromolecule level, right? We've already mixed the things and then we bake them or turn them into food. And so they think 10 to 20 years from now, we'll see food printers in kitchens and fast food restaurants. Maybe they'll print French fries instead of cutting up potatoes. They'll just take chunks of potato and do that. Maybe Taco Bell, I bet. This has been my stance for a long time. Taco Bell is a magical place.
Okay, agreed. Also the official position of this podcast.
Yeah, official position of this podcast.
Right under the no cannibalism, Taco Bell is great.
Magic. Because it doesn't matter what's in that taco, right? I like to ask people at parties, what fast food restaurant could replace all of their meat with vegetable meat, like plant-based meat? And you would never even realize it. And some people are like, oh, I don't know, maybe like Hardee's or, Carl's Jr. I don't know.
Same restaurant, different coast, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to make sure and be
inclusive. Yeah.
But the answer is Taco Bell. Taco Bell, if tomorrow they'd be like, guys, we've been serving plant-based meat for 10 years. Everybody would be like, I'm angry that you didn't tell me, but I'm still going to eat Taco Bell because it was delicious every time I had it.
My wife's vegetarian. Taco Bell is a go-to because it's really easy to swap out what's in their stuff for true. Potatoes.
This episode is not sponsored by Taco Bell. We both like Taco Bell, and that's fine. So there could be a time in the future where dough is assembled into something with a machine that then is used to be baked and heated and stuff, but there are billions and billions of tiny molecules in even like a tortilla. So it's not like we're anywhere close to replicators. Well, we'll have to see when we finally can move molecules around, and a lot of them all at the same time. So, Kevin, is a replicator even something feasible? Yes, it absolutely is. If you have some energy and you have a computer that can manipulate a molecule, which we can do, even now we can move them around. One of Julian's episodes about the pointiest thing talked about what that pointy thing does. Is just scan molecules individually. It's a thing. We can do it. We just don't have the energy or the interest right now.
Right.
Again, according to Giancarlo Sari, the quantum physicist at Queen's University Belfast, on a fundamental level, there is nothing that prevents us from building a replicator-like machine. It's just not a top priority at the moment, which is a very physicist answer.
It's very cool. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so much easier to just grow food like we always have, maybe with some tweaks here and there with like genetic modification so the crops are more robust or have some traits that we want, but like that versus assembling it one microscopic Lego piece at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
you'd be waiting a long time for your Earl Grey hot,
Yeah. I mean, that's again billions and billions, 270 moons worth for a person, so I mean, what? One moon worth is 270th
maybe like
of a person.
Good chicken dinner. Yeah.
So if you're 70 kilograms and you divide that by its 270 moons.
What's the math?
It's 3.8 moons of mass per kilogram of thing. Assuming, of course, there's the same number of atoms in the thing. Or you could say per kilogram of person, if you want to be clear.
Right.
But 3.8 moons worth if those atoms were rice-sized. That's a lot.
There's a lot of atoms, and it would take so long. You would need the justification of, hey, we've got this, I don't know, warp drive technology.
Yeah.
We can send humans to the distant reaches of the solar system or galaxy or whatever, but like, how are we going to feed them?
Yeah.
I guess we'll finally build the replicator technology while we're at it. Like,
Yeah. I did read once, and this is just off the top of my head. I read once the amount of power that we're talking about when we're talking about these fictional ships. You know, like they shoot phasers at each other, which aren't lasers. They're different somehow. They're shooting them at each other. And the amount of power in one phaser blast is in like the terawatt range. So they're shooting more power. They're just like throwing them at each other, just like, and it's like not even hurt. They're just like hitting each other's shields and being like, I'm mad at you. And it's literally terawatts of energy, which is like more than we make as a planet. And they're just like one ship being like, I'm mad at you. And like, that's a crazy advancement over where we are now in terms of just energy generation.
Yep.
Not impossible. Something feasible. The question was feasible. Feasible? Sure. After World War III and 100 years of suffering so that we can come together as a species.
Once we get that out of our system, yeah.
Then we want to be better people.
Well, cool. Something to look forward to.
Yeah. 2026, everybody. Let's take a break. Come back while we still have time.
Yeah.
Julian, give me your best dinosaur roar.
Oh, God, an asteroid! It's horrible!
Wow, that was not where I expected that to go. We're popping in before the show to tell you about I Know Dino. It's a dinosaur podcast.
You know, we think of those dinosaurs being this thing that's been dead for tens of millions of years. Even so, studying dinosaurs can still teach us stuff that is relevant to the world today.
Yeah, like climate models to help us understand global warming.
Migration patterns of dinosaur lineages, they tell us about Earth's changing continents.
We can also study dinosaur diets, what plants lived then and maybe what animals and how they interact.
And, this is super cool, many dinosaur injuries, paleopathologies, they're the first known occurrences of diseases.
And they talk about all this kind of stuff on I Know Dino. It comes out every week with new dinosaur stories that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Like, I hadn't heard of a lot of these, which is pretty cool.
You can find I Know Dino on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts are. And if you found us, you can probably find them. Go check them out.
And welcome back to That's Absurd. Please elaborate. I hope there was an ad there. If there wasn't, and you want to sponsor the podcast, send us an email. We would love it. Taco Bell?
Taco Bell executives listening.
Please, Taco Bell. Please. We love you. Okay. So now, Julian has a question from another listener.
I do. My question this week comes from Joshua, who sent in a voicemail.
Hello, That's Absurd Show. My name is Joshua, and I'm from Newcastle in the UK. My question is, what would be the most likely way that coconuts could have been transported to Arthurian England? I ask this question because I'm an unapologetic nerd, and I like nearly all nerds. I've watched Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail. In this, the question is posed to King Arthur, how he acquired a coconut to make horse galloping sounds. Perhaps, like the film suggests, it might have been carried by a swallow. Is this possible? Thanks, Joshua.
Joshua elaborates. In the film, documentary, Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail, the airspeed velocity of a swallow, parentheses, non-migratory, is questioned to figure out why Patsy had coconuts that he was using to make horse galloping sounds. What is actually the most likely way that at least one coconut could have made its way to Arthurian England around 5th to 6th century?
And I feel like you have to say at that point, where'd you get a coconut?
Right.
It'd just be Aaron Aronson over there, be like,
I was gonna say,
what is that?
We never learned the name of the knight or soldier that's guarding the battlement in that opening scene.
Whoa.
Who asks about it.
Where'd you get a coconut?
Aaron.
It could be Aaron Aronson.
Right.
Yeah. Look, down at me mother with my 3 sticks, I've never even seen a little round piece like that. What is it?
I love that he knows what a coconut is, though.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Right? Like, how can he even question it?
So
to know that
clearly,
it's out of place.
In canon, this is not the first coconut.
No.
This is not even,
be.
it can't even be that unusual to have seen said coconuts.
Right.
Enough that somebody, when an average age was what, like 30, 35, 40.
Right.
Like, has seen one.
Sees one and goes, where'd you get a coconut?
Where'd you get a coconut?
Like he knows where it is. He knows what it is. He names
found
it
them.
from a distance in the dark on a misty day. Yeah.
They found them, and they found more than, yes.
Right.
Please continue. Elaborate.
Okay. So that's already. Here's the thing about Monty Python.
Here's the thing.
We are but humble apprentices of the absurd.
Oh.
This is where Monty Python dwelled. One of the things I think about all the time, there was an interview, I forget with whom from the comedy troupe, but it was a really great distillation of why it worked. They were asked, like, how do you do such absurd comedy, right? Like, how do you keep being absurd? And they corrected the interviewer and they said, basically, we don't try and be absurd the whole time. We start with an absurd premise and we follow it to a logical conclusion.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Which kind of the impetus for this show, if I'm going to be honest, when we were thinking of like
honestly,
how we wanted to make
true.
this.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That gives us a lot of credit.
Now
if only
they know.
we were better at this, we could be Monty Python.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're just going to have to settle for being us, sorry to say. So, anyway, that's the whole shtick for Monty Python all the time. Monty Python and the Holy Grail movie has that repeatedly, and these coconuts are just part of that. It's a little, for those who may not have seen the movie, because I know we have an international audience, and I feel like Monty Python's a very Western, definitely.
Anglo-friendly.
And
kinda.
American nerds love Monty Python.
Yep.
But yeah, the movie takes place in what looks like medieval Britain. There's a king pretending to gallop through the countryside, and he's got his faithful squire Patsy following him, and Patsy's banging together two coconuts to make that classic sound. I'm gonna let Kyle, if he wants, can insert the sound there. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, though, I've got to correct Joshua a little bit about his timeline because he says that it takes place in 5th to 6th century England, which is when the myths of King Arthur are set. But the documentary, Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail, actually opens with what year it's set in, which is 932 AD.
Huh.
Yeah. A little late.
Oh,
anyway.
Why? Huh. Interesting.
And I think that's just a bit of a nitpick because the 5th century, 6th century England actually is just after the fall of the Roman Empire, basically. If you were to ask a historian the exact date that Rome fell, they would say, at 476, you could put that, as a year, some certain events happened. Rome getting sacked, right?
As everybody knows,
that's
476. We're all aware, Julian. Jeez.
Yeah. How often do you think about the Roman Empire?
Never. I've thought about it more since that meme than I ever have in my whole life. And every time I think about it like this. Like, again. Anyway.
That's how I think about it a lot.
I'd rather think about Star Trek.
I subscribe to a podcast called Fall of Rome with Patrick Wyman, and he goes into all the different details. And one thing that he covers, too, is that the fall of the Roman Empire didn't look the same in every part of the Roman Empire, right? You might have that nice 476 date for when Rome itself basically collapsed. But Rome was pretty large. At its height, it stretched from England in the west, all the way out to the Gulf of Persia in the east, and Egypt and bits of the Arabian Peninsula. It was huge. And so collapse didn't come all at once. In fact, the eastern part kept going for a long time, right? It became the Byzantine Empire. Western Rome is the part that collapsed in 476. But before that, in the early 400s, was basically when the British part of the Roman Empire slowly faded out. There was a lot of unrest in the Roman Empire, a lot of different people vying for the title of emperor and usurpations and fights and civil wars over that. And one guy from England, Constantine III, decided he was going to go and take an army and try and take the throne for himself. And he left England. He was basically the ruler there, and he died. He got defeated in battle, and they basically never heard from Rome again in England. So it was this kind of slow fade of the Roman Empire there.
Wow.
Which is weird to think about.
It is weird to think about, but makes a lot more sense than the very clean, it was in 476, as everybody knows.
Yeah. Suddenly, no more Rome. It's done.
Yeah.
No, in England, it was more like, hey, is anybody, whatever happened to that Constantine III guy who left a few years back? Has anybody heard anything from him?
Did that solve anything?
Nope, just crickets. So Rome goes into this decay in England, and about that time, much later, is when the stories of King Arthur questing for the Holy Grail are set.
Yeah.
So I don't think it quite looks like the Monty Python movie that we know, right, where they're all knights with chainmail armor and squires and such. Probably looks more like basically just post-Rome, a bunch of poor people post-Rome. So I was thinking maybe if we're going to go with the Arthurian legend like Joshua is actually more accurately citing instead of the movie, maybe we can say, okay, is there a way that a coconut got there across the Roman Empire?
Right.
Because,
where are coconuts from?
Aha!
As I should say, where we get a coconut?
Yes. So coconuts originated in the Indo-Pacific. There's actually two specific genetic lineages of coconut that we found, apparently. One from around like Malaysia and these Pacific Islands, and another from around India. And this is kind of fascinating. The one from India was picked up much later by Portuguese traders and moved east and eventually found its way to like Brazil and the east coast of South America, while the Pacific coconut traveled the other direction and ended up on the west coast of South America. So you can kind of see this global trading lineage if you just look at coconuts in South America. The ones on the east coast are from India, and the ones on the west coast from the Pacific. So cool. But that's where they're from originally. And I started thinking, okay, are those regions included in the Roman Empire? No.
Yeah.
Now I should back up. So a benefit of being in the Roman Empire is you do a lot of trade within the Roman Empire. Archaeologists have found tons of pots, clay, amphora, ceramics that archaeologists love. They can get so specialized. If you really know your stuff, you can look at a little shard of it and be like, I know where that was made. I know what that was used to ship. They're huge potheads, I think is the term. They're really into it.
Love a pothead. My favorite.
Right. They just love pottery.
An amphorophiliac. That's what we could.
So we have found
jarhead.
Jarhead, exactly.
Yeah.
We found from these amphora, these shards of pottery in Roman Britain, we know that they had olive oil from Spain and other things from around the Roman Empire, like garum, this fish sauce that was made in the Mediterranean. It's
Which
really
we've talked
gross.
about before.
It's like the modern day Worcestershire sauce, basically, like a fermented, salty fish paste that they freaking loved in the Roman Empire. They had
I would try
in Britain.
I would try it.
I bet there's recipes. Now, as for coconuts, we don't have any evidence that they got there. But like I said, part of the benefit of the ceramic pottery is that it lasts so long through the ages. But softer organic things, coconuts, do not.
Yeah,
now,
relatively softer.
Yes.
Coconuts seem hard to us, but they're not hard hundreds of years.
Right. They're still organic material. They can be broken down.
The replicator would break them down pretty easily.
Yes, exactly. Although the replicator also apparently can make glassware and ceramics. So
yeah, true.
Okay. So now let's expand out to the whole Roman Empire. Let's just imagine, could coconuts have gotten to the Roman Empire at all? Well, like I said, it extended all the way to the Gulf of Persia or Egypt or parts of Saudi Arabia, as far east as it could go. That's not in the range of where coconuts originated. Now, one cool thing about coconuts, though, is that they float. What?
Now, one cool thing about coconuts. Look, on this podcast, this is welcome to We're Nuts for Coconuts. This is the new coconut podcast.
That's the start.
Every week, we'll bring you one new fact
sitting
about
backwards
coconuts.
in a chair. Let's talk about coconuts. One cool thing, right? Well, they are cool.
One cool thing about it was just the way you said it was. It was so like
so wholesome.
One cool thing about coconuts. It's like there are many, but let me just give you this one.
Let me tell me blow your mind with some coconut facts. When you think of a coconut tree, though, growing on a tropical island,
Yeah.
what shape does it take?
I think of a big palm tree, right?
Right.
Like I think of, because I've seen it in cartoons and in movies, and I've lived in places with them, and it's this big, swooping, long trunk with kind of like a pff at the top, and the coconuts are bundled up at the top there near the pff,
Yep.
fronds. We used to have some in my front yard when I lived in LA.
Now,
Had to take care of them. They're a real pain.
which way do they swoop?
The trunk?
Yeah.
They swoop toward the beach, toward
Yes.
the water, toward.
Have you ever
Forward.
thought about why?
Not until this moment, but now it makes total sense because the coconut needs, like any seed, I assume it's a seed, not a nut, needs to be able to spread. It's more like a pine cone.
Or how about
What
this?
is it?
It's a type of fruit with an outer fleshy part, an exocarp, and a mesocarp,
Uh-huh.
surrounding a single shell, a pit in the United States, or a pip in the UK. Second time we've said pip on this podcast today. Weird.
Yeah, weird.
And it's got a hardened endocarp with a seed inside. Now, Trace, when we went into all sorts of categories of fruits, do you remember what
crap.
meets all these?
Julian, you know that I do all this research and then I immediately forget it
gone.
after we record the
gone.
podcast.
I know what you mean.
I'm surprised we can reference the podcasts that we reference already.
I know. Technically,
I'm going to guess a fruit.
it is, well, it's a type of fruit.
Right.
It's a drupe.
A drupe! My
It's a
favorite!
drupe.
I should have just guessed
You should have
drupe.
known it was a drupe.
My favorite. Everything's a drupe.
Everything's a drupe, including
It's a drupe.
cocoa nuts. And
Huh.
they are adapted for basically floating around in lagoons or open water for a long time, because if they dropped right where the coconut tree already was, it'd be competing with the established coconut tree.
Yeah.
So they have this adaptation where they grow outward towards the water. Really, they're following the light. It's phototropism. They
Yeah.
grow out towards the light, which often puts them in conflict with strong winds, right? But it's more advantageous for them to then be able to drop it out over water, when the tide comes in or into a lagoon or something, and have the seed float somewhere else until it hopefully washes up somewhere that it can actually put down roots. That fiber on the outside is good for retaining water, by the way, wherever it sets up, because it's probably not going to be on very good soil. And then it can start growing there. Yeah.
Cool. I
Very-
honestly had never thought about it.
I told you there was more than one cool thing about coconuts.
Oh, another. And let me tell you another cool thing about.
I mentioned that they float, right? And
Yes.
then that they grow towards the water and they drop them
Yep.
in the water by design. Now, a coconut fruit, drupe, whatever,
Droop.
it can float at sea and still be viable when it finds somewhere to actually put down roots and start growing 110 days later.
What?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So a really, really long time. So they're
Yeah.
pretty well adapted for spreading out from these Pacific islands where they originate and actually traveling from place to place and setting up shop. So I looked up ocean currents to see if maybe they could carry
if one could get
all
there.
the way to the Roman Empire. And no, I don't think it's possible. Not in the amount of time. And even if it could, coconuts are tropical. They need year-round warmth, wet conditions. They're not going to be able to grow outside of the tropics, so they're not really going to be successful where the Roman Empire actually was. Now, with all that said, the Roman Empire didn't exist in a vacuum. They had all sorts of neighbors, and, some they waged war with and conquered, but others they would trade with. So I thought, maybe, is it possible that the coconut came all the way to Arthurian England from trade? And I found some sources that said, maybe it could have been in England, but it has that problem of being perishable,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't
But 100 days? No?
last as long as other 110 days, but it'd have to travel all the way from wherever it was grown, right?
Yeah.
Possibly in India, maybe somewhere else, foreshadowing,
Yeah.
all the way across the Roman Empire without getting sold or eaten, and also without rotting, without any sort of refrigeration technology. So I don't
Right.
know if the actual coconut fruit with its coconut flesh could make it all the way there. Now, that said, there is evidence of coconuts basically having some interaction with that eastern part of the Roman Empire. So all along, like the west coast of Africa, the southern edge of the Arabian Peninsula, India, right, you can grow these coconut trees. And there's evidence that they've been there for thousands of years, that they were brought there by early Arab traders and that they planted coconuts on the east coast of Africa and the southern part of the Arabian Peninsula, like Oman and Yemen.
Yeah.
Because another cool fact about coconuts.
3 cool facts about coconuts for those playing the home game.
They're incredibly useful as a thing.
I mean, aside from making horse hoof noises?
No, can you believe it? There's other things you can use them for.
I do know that they're used in place of things like microplastics for exfoliation and stuff.
Well, coconut trees are sometimes referred to as the tree of life because you can get so much from them. You can use their wood, obviously, for building stuff, but you can also use the hair from the coconut, what's known as, I'm going to say this wrong, coir, to weave it into a rope. And so there are these old ancient vessels, traditional vessels that Indian and Arab and African traders make out of coconut wood and coconut rope called dhows. And they use these to do trading along the coast in the Indian Ocean. These dhows, by the way, have been used to bring stuff from Africa or the southern part of the Arabian Peninsula, like frankincense and myrrh, into the ancient Arab world,
cool.
Right? And Babylonia and Jerusalem. Now, follow me on this one.
Yeah.
I'm going to probably commit some archaeological crimes.
Okay.
But I have a theory. Now,
okay.
What is the Holy Grail?
Is a cup.
It is a cup. Specifically, whose cup?
Jeezy Beezy's.
Jeezy Beezy. That's right. Unless, of course, you're
I guess it would be more like Jeezy Ceezy, but that's fine. We don't, I mean, this is a science podcast. I don't know.
According to legend, the Holy Grail was the cup that Jesus Christ drank from at the Last Supper.
Right.
Right?
Jeezy Creasy.
Sure. And as such, it has all sorts of amazing properties, right?
Magic.
Eternal life and youth and all this wonderful stuff.
Can heal bullet holes when Sean Connery is shot by who else, everyone? Nazis. 'Cause Nazis are bad. That is another
official
thing that we have. Official statement on this podcast.
Of this podcast.
Nazis bad.
Pro Taco Bell, anti-Nazi.
Honestly, not a bad platform.
Okay. So we know that ancient Arab traders, as far back as 600 BC, were using these dhows, possibly made of coconut wood and coconut rope, to ferry things like frankincense and myrrh from Eastern Africa, Southern Arabian Peninsula, into parts of the Roman Empire that they could then trade. When I say frankincense and myrrh, who do you think of?
Am I supposed to think of somebody?
There's a legend of somebody who was born, and a bunch of people came to him with gifts, and some of those gifts were frankincense and myrrh.
Apparently, I didn't read my books enough to know who that is. Is it Jeezy Crazy?
It's Jeezy Crazy.
It's Jeezy Crazy.
It's Jeezy Crazy.
As my kid would say, holy patootie.
So when Christ was born, right, he was brought frankincense and myrrh according to the stories. And then much later, towards the end of his life, at his Last Supper, he dines. He has some drink from a cup that becomes the Holy Grail. Trace.
I see where you're going here.
Do you see where I'm going with this? Trace, let's go back to the clip, the sound we played of Patsy clapping the coconut together. Trace, does that sound like a fleshy, wet coconut?
No, it sure as hecka doesn't. It sounds a lot like a big hard shell.
Right.
That would be maybe cup-shaped.
Yes.
Or bowl-shaped.
So, the tree of life, along with all these wonderful things like the fruit and the coir and the wood, the coconut itself, once you eat it, I feel like you could make a pretty good cup out of that, don't you think?
Yeah, a pretty good cup.
In fact, we believe there were ancient coconut cups. They just haven't survived because of, time and decay.
Yeah, but they were known as nutter cuppers.
Nut cups.
Nut cups. Wait, no, that's
no, that's a different thing.
That's not it.
We know that coconuts were used for actual tableware. We know that people in the area in which Jesus lived had contact with traders who used coconuts regularly, why couldn't they have made some coconut tableware and traded it, and eventually it finds its way to Mount Zion?
Hold on.
What?
You're telling me.
Yeah.
You, Julian, are telling me that the Last Supper was tiki themed? They had.
I mean, when you put it that way.
They had pagan idol drinks and they were eating, well, maybe not pork. I don't know. Jesus is Jewish. I'm not really sure
pork.
how that works. But anyway, they're eating, egg and rice dishes and stuff.
I don't know.
It's just delicious.
I don't know. Maybe, but we do know from the documentary Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Excellent documentary.
That Jesus wasn't drinking from some fancy cup, right?
He won. No way.
As a humble carpenter, he might have something a bit simpler, right?
Look, if I were a carpenter, I'd make my own cup out of a coconut because it's easier.
Why not? It's quite humble. So let's say he drinks from this coconut mug and imbues it with magical properties, like the ability to grant eternal life. Do you think the coconut mug itself then also becomes eternal?
I don't know. Depends on, the magic.
Yeah, the lore.
I guess, sure,
we
yeah.
need a lore book.
Sure, why not? Why not? Sure, yeah.
Right. Do you think then that this coconut mug, or perhaps a set of them, since there were 12 others dining there that evening,
Right.
could have made its way, traded through various hands, across the Roman Empire,
My God.
all the way to Brittany and Arthurian England?
God.
Perhaps it was used by some Roman noble in their villa as a souvenir from the Far East, and then after Constantine III leaves, and the place goes into slow decline and the villas start to crumble, some poor, humble knights looking
Wow.
to reunify Britain find it in this collapsing, antiquitous den. And perhaps because they cannot afford horses, because again, the Roman Empire's collapsed and they're all poor, they decide to mimic it
Using
said
none
coconuts
other
they found.
than the humble coconut cups that they've found in the cellar.
Right? And they travel across the land where they see
In
other
search.
people who apparently have seen coconuts before, maybe in other Roman villas, or at least have heard stories of them.
Oh my God, Julian.
But they have the true eternal coconut that once touched the lips of Jeezy Crazy himself.
Jeezy crazy. Wow.
Do you think?
I mean, yes.
Yes.
I think.
Joshua, why not?
Why not?
Yes, that's my answer to you, Joshua. I put it to you that the coconuts carried by the humble Squire Patsy
In the documentary.
Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail, I submit that was the Holy Grail. And Arthur didn't need to go far for his quest. He always could have just turned around and asked Patsy for them, but he didn't know. He didn't know because he assumed, unfortunately, like the bad guys in the movie documentary.
They chose poorly.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And those coconut cups, whoa, they would once again fall out of the record of history until reemerging in the 1930s when a brave archaeology professor and his dad would discover them again.
And their broken family.
And they're, yes.
And the name of their dog as well was, often.
Yes.
Or named the dog Indiana.
Indiana was the dog's name.
That dog's name.
Anyway, that's the best I got. I don't know. It's probably so wrong. Like I said, we'll tell you when we're making stuff up. Were there coconuts in parts of the Roman Empire? Almost certainly. Did they make their way all the way to England before, the typical date, which is around, I don't know, the 1200s, I think I read? Probably not.
Yeah. But it's possible if they had dried them so that it was just the husk, maybe. Mm-hmm. That's something I was thinking about while you were discussing the chalice of Jeezy Crazy. Great band name. That maybe they dried out some of the coconuts and then they could have been used for, tiki barware and braziers. I don't know. Anyway, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Realistic answer, no. Unless, basically there was more trade, faster trade than there actually was. We just kind of speed up the whole timeline of the interconnectedness of the world. No, not really.
Yeah. I mean, even a lot of the fruit that we have at the grocery store now wasn't there 50 years ago because they were like, this is too hard to get across the planet. And that's, we've gotten really good at getting stuff that we want. They weren't good at that then.
I also looked into it. Like I mentioned, those ancient traders, they grew coconuts on the east coast of Africa, and swallows do migrate from South Africa to England.
So could they
have
laden?
Could they have been laden? Perhaps only if some madman like, I don't know, Sir Bedivere was doing it. But he'd have to be in East Africa where the coconuts
to, get them
were and catching the swallows.
And tie
and then
two of them
fly.
together. They could share it with, share the weight of the coconut.
Grip it together. No, most likely it would have to be through some sort of trade route, some human way. Yeah. But that just wouldn't have happened, even if we go by the movie's timeline of the 930s. No, the first records of them really are in that area of the world are more like the 16th century.
Wow.
But still fun to imagine.
I mean, if nothing else, I learned a bunch of fun facts about coconuts.
And
today.
That's what this podcast is all about.
And that's what we talk about here on Coco Chat. So thank you so much, everyone, for you've made it through this episode of That's Absurd. Please elaborate. And thank you for listening. This show was created and written and produced by me, Trace Dominguez.
And me, Julian Huguet.
And it was produced and edited by the wonderful and wonderfully talented red shirt, Kyle Sisk.
We'll die for him, though. We will.
We're the red shirts.
We're the red shirts. He's
it depends
captain.
Because, in the TNG version, red shirts are command red, and then but in the original series, and then in some of the later, they switched it to command yellow, and then, it's complicated.
Special thanks to listeners who submitted questions featured in this episode, Kevin and Joshua. If you'd like to submit a question, look for the form in our show notes or email us at hello@that'sabsurdshow.com. Visit our website, that'sabsurdshow.com/ask, or call us 302-TAPE-SHOW, TAPESHO.
Special thanks to our new Patreon subscribers, Shane and Kevin.
Woohoo!
Don't know if that's coincidence. If it's the same Kevin, hey, welcome. Shout out also to our absurd administrators, Les and Adam. Everyone on the Patreon is important to us. If you have joined, thank you so much for joining the Patreon. I'm so happy that you all are there and supporting us. Through that, we are self-funded, so this is super duper helpful for you to be there. If you want to join, all you got to do, patreon.com/that'sabsurdshow. You can find it on our website. You can find it down in the show notes. And if you already joined, or maybe it's not for you, that's okay. You can also leave us a review.
They can be with stars, hearts. I don't know what they're using on all the different platforms these days. Are there any?
Yeah.
Coconut
Pluses?
emojis?
I don't know. Thumbs ups?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, eggplant emoji, sure. Why not? Do it.
Why not?
If you're into it, go for it. We're not going to shame you.
And finally, a special thanks to those listening on Nebula. Nebula listeners get access to ad-free versions of episodes, and they support us and other awesome independent creators that we watch and love all the time. I'm getting back into a Game Maker's Toolkit kick.
Oh, yeah?
Again. Oh, he's so good. He's always so good.
So good.
So if you want to support us and other creators like Game Maker's Toolkit, you can join Nebula by going to go.nebula.tv/that'sabsurdshow.
There's a link down in the show notes, and we are adding new creators all the time. So I think we've added like 3 new creators this week, I was seeing. So it's awesome. Anyway, as we say at the end of every episode of That's Absurd, please elaborate.
You only have 1 year left before World War III, so thanks for spending some of it with us.
Go out and get yourself a Cocoa Droop.
Yeah, enjoy.
I'm going to want to call it Cocoa Droop forever now.
Enjoy a festive Cocoa Droop before the end times.
Festive Cocoa Droop. I'm trying to picture what a festive Cocoa Droop versus just a regular Cocoa Droop. I mean, I love a Cocoa Droop on the beach.
It's a festive one, has the little umbrella in it.
Oh.
Yeah.